Welcome to the City of Muskego Zoning Board of Appeals, June 25th, 2020, 6 o'clock. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call. Aaron.
Here.
Good.
Chairman Blumenfield.
Here.
Vice Chairman Schnicker. Dr. Kashan.
Here.
Mr. Boschert. Mr. Robertson.
Here.
Mr. Wallner. Mr. Horrenda.
Here.
Fire Tresbitowski.
Here.
Okay, we have a majority and we will continue. First of all, I'd like to statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, June 19th.
Thank you. I would like to thank everybody for wearing masks today to this meeting. We had a virtual meeting at our last session. We're back in public now. We are adhering to social distancing and doing our best that none of us who are here, most of us on a voluntary basis, contract anything that could be close to the COVID-19 disease. And so for that, I thank you all for complying with our request. Okay, we will go to the minutes after this. Notice of closed session. We haven't gone into a closed session in forever that I can remember, so I doubt that we will do it today. Old business, we don't have any. New business. And please, when you stand up and if you're going to testify, make sure that you speak clearly. Don't eat the microphone. Aaron needs to get your name and address. He might have it already, but just so that you make sure that we can hear what you have to say clearly. Thank you very much. Appeal number 02-2020, petitioner Robert Hazel. I hope I said that right. Hazel, I'm sorry, of LBJ Muskego Realty LLC, properties South 73, West 16555, Janesville Road, tax key number 2198.978, requesting, under the direction of Section 400-18 of the Municipal Code Zoning Board of Appeals, the petitioner seeks the following variance. Chapter 400-23A, building location. Location restricted. No building shall be hereafter erected, structurally altered, or relocated on a lot, except in conformity with the following locational regulations as hereinafter specified for the district in which it is located. A side offset of 10 feet is required from the eastern side lot line. The petitioner seeks an offset of 9.8 feet from the east side lot line for the continued allowance of a portion of an existing commercial building and is therefore requesting a 0.2 foot variance from the required side offset. Who appears on this matter and would like to testify on this matter? If you are here, please stand up. And if you want to speak, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in appeal 02-2020 shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and please, sir, for the record, will you state your name and your address and who you represent?
Mike Van Summeren, attorney for the applicant. Address is 111 East Kilbourne Avenue.
And can you spell your last name for the record,
Yes.
sir?
VAN space capital SOMEREN with Davis and Kilthau.
Okay.
The address is 111 East Kilbourne Avenue, Suite 1400, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202.
Thank you very much, sir.
Robert Helsel, 1461 South River Road, Berlin, 531510.
Okay. And Adam Trebetowski, our planner. Okay. Mr. Van Summeren, I imagine that you're going to present your client's case to us succinctly and briefly and tell us why you're here?
Yes.
And state the hardship.
Yes. So my client acquired this building.
Could you step up to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Just don't touch it. Don't breathe into it. Don't.
I'll try not to.
Thank you.
So
You touched it.
I did.
Okay, we'll wipe it down.
So my client recently acquired the building with the purposes of opening up a laundromat, remodeling the building and opening up a laundromat inside, and determined during the course of his construction planning that it made sense to expand the footprint of his business. So it's going to be owner occupied, coin operated laundromat. And in doing this, realized that in order to expand the footprint, he would have to knock down the building or portions of the building. When he acquired the building, he did not obtain a survey, but did investigate zoning and saw no open infractions, things along those lines. And so made what we would think is a reasonable assumption that the building was in conformance with zoning. When he redid his plans and had a survey done, determined that the building as it currently exists, the automatic car wash bay on the east end of the building, exceeds the offset by 0.2 feet. As part of that, realized that when he was getting his plans through Plan Commission and got it approved the first time, the building wasn't going to be demoed in any way, shape, or form. So it was approved. When he came back and determined that he was going to demolish portions of the building, that's when the offset infraction was discovered, and at that time decided to ask for the variance. Plans were submitted that would make the building in conformance, which would require us to dismantle the entire car wash bay along with the rest of the building and remove all of the automatic car wash equipment and rebuild everything approximately 2.5 inches to the west. So the hardship in this situation is the fact that we'd have to do a number of things in addition to what we were already planning to do as part of the construction process, which would possibly include getting another variance from the masonry requirements, because currently the entire east wall is masonry. And in order to fit our current plans but still relocate the wall, we would need to have a variance from the masonry requirements, because adding masonry to that wall would put us right back in the situation we're in now, where we would encroach into the offset. On top of that, we'd have we'd have substantial landscaping that we'd probably have to add to that side, and it would just be a much heavier impact on the site than what we were intending. And so that is why we have asked to have the car wash bay be allowed to remain.
Okay, so according to the, I usually ask, does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, do you have you mentioned, the big bugaboo here is hardship.
Right.
Great idea, good idea, doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but do you have the case law on the Wisconsin law indicates where a municipality fails to detect a mistake?
Yes, I did not bring the case, unfortunately, but the case law referenced is Accent Developers LLC versus City of Menominee, Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
And in that case,
so we'll include that in
yes,
as our standard for the hardship.
yes.
It was part of the agenda.
Yeah, I see it there. I'm just making sure.
Okay. So, and just, anybody else have any questions?
So you originally were going to demolish the building and then you switch it to renovation?
No, it was actually the opposite. Initially, we're going to renovate, which would not require any sort of, it would use the exact same footprint. And so any zoning violations, which we were aware of none, had there been any zoning violations, there wouldn't have been any issue because it would be an existing non-conforming use. And because we are going to expand the footprint of the remainder of the building, that now requires us to get a variance because it's over the 50% threshold that would typically allow a non-conforming use to remain.
50% of value?
50%, I believe, of square footage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so just for the record, so that anybody who's watching this exciting meeting will know what we're talking about, as part of the hardship that was filed with this appeal, it says case law, Wisconsin law indicates that where a municipality fails to detect a mistake in the location of an improvement, failing to detect the setback encroachment during inspections by the municipality during construction, acquiring a property owner to demolish and relocate a structure constitutes a hardship that is unique to an owner's property. And I know that the city presentation will get into that, but I just wanted to make that, it's part of the record, but I wanted to make it known to anybody that was watching what we're working with here. Okay. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Van Sumeren? Okay, Mr. Hazel, do you want to speak at all? You don't have to.
I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay, that's fine. Adam, will you present the city side?
Sure, thank you. So yeah, the applicant covered obviously the bulk of the items, and also you did very well in just even reading this. You know, like we said, we're here today because of this building, which started as a renovation project, became a, you know, demoing about 80 to 90% of the building and rebuilding, you know, a good portion of it. The one thing I wanted to clarify is, yeah, so when the city and staff were originally under the impression that it was going to be renovated, the 50% rule as we have in our code is basically says if a building is non-conforming, the material costs, not counting labor, for anything that's expanding outward or upward or rebuilt, so any of those, not counting interior remodeling, and if you're keeping the shell, not counting stuff you're doing to the shell. So when it was an interior only and exterior without addition project, 50% would have not added up to anything because they weren't adding anything or very minimal. And once the project became demo and rebuild for the majority of the building, because it was being rebuilt, that kicked in the 50% rule, which even though this property has value, and I don't know the exact value, you know, it was definitely, they weren't going to be able to do it anywhere near that cost. Now, I will say that I think the project ended up being much better of a building by doing what they're doing. So I think it's a good choice of, rather than, anytime someone tries to retrofit a building, I feel like that never turns out as well as starting from scratch, you know. And since most of their building will be starting from scratch, you're going to end up with a much nicer looking product because you have more control over it. You're not just trying to work within the existing openings and stuff. You can put the openings where you want to put the openings and stuff like that. So because of those changes, though, that gave them the option of either meeting the 50%, which wasn't feasible in any form, asking for a variance to that 50%, which isn't as customary if you don't have to, or the option that they pursued, which was asking for a variance to that side offset. You know, relating to that case law case, yeah, there was a memo, as you probably saw in your packet, that our city attorney and his staff looked at. And while they agree that parts of that case definitely apply to the city, parts of it may not exactly, but definitely is a good example of where to go. You know, one thing the city wants to stress is we don't feel that there was any miss or negligence or whatever on our part, because most communities, and we're one of those, since that car wash bay, that's really the part that's in question, was an addition. For additions, most communities, and we're one of those too, I think almost all communities that I've dealt with, don't do recertifications of foundations for additions. And when the inspectors are out there, inspectors are not surveyors. Inspectors by law cannot determine how far a building is from a lot line. Only a surveyor can do that. That's why surveyors have to be licensed with the state through the professional land surveyor certification. So a building inspector inspecting the footings and foundation, they are not supposed to determine if it's okay because they're not a surveyor and they don't have that ability. But that still being the note, that doesn't mean that even if they would have recertified it, that a contractor didn't dig his hole a little bit wider. And if a contractor digs their hole a little bit wider, they're going to put the form there and not move it 2 inches because they're going to say, what's 2 inches? So it was probably a conglomeration of things that got the building 2 inches too close. But it's there. It's neither here nor there now. But I do agree, staff looked at this and we agree that, you know, whether it was a combination of not having it recertified, which, like I said, we and other cities don't typically do for additions, and that car wash bay that's wrong was an addition. It's something that's still, it's wrong. It's got us here today still. Our plan commission did review this project because the plan commission was involved and they had to amend their resolution because the original resolution said they had to move the wall in the 2 inches. And after the variance option came up by the applicants, they came back to the plan commission, which was a rightful step, and asked the plan commission if they could either move the wall or try for a variance, so either or. And the plan commission did grant that and actually provided kind of unofficially, since they don't have an official say in this, but they did make it clear and they wanted it passed to the board that they were in favor of the variance being granted, as they think this is a good thing for the city and Janesville Road. So yeah, staff was recommending approval based upon, that hardship of, kind of just what existed, working around what's existing, and what's being there, just being, built off of, rather than build anything new that would be non-compliant. I think that's the big thing. What they're building off of is already there. They're not building something new that's non-compliant. Everything that's being added is fully compliant.
Okay, any questions for the city?
So it looks like you got the blessing from the planning commission with two different options that they provided. My question would be is there any way to have prevented this moving forward in the past?
I think the only thing you could do would be,
Or catching it,
well, yeah, so like if, I can give you a little background. New home construction, for many years, I mean, probably since I've been here, new home construction, which is the majority of construction we see percentage-wise, new home construction has to have their footings and foundation both recertified by a surveyor before they can ever pour those. So because that's the bulk of our construction we deal with, those are done every day. Every home in Muskego that's been built in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, maybe even more, has a foundation and a footing recertification. We've more recently, and I say more recently, maybe 5 years at most, for new commercial construction, the key is not additions, new construction, have had recertifications done also. I think one thing we could look to do, and this isn't a hard task, it puts a little more earnest on the contractor, but hey, right, keeps everyone honest,
Right.
would be the idea of doing a recertification for any commercial project, not just new construction. So like in this case, when that car wash was added in 2000 or whenever it was, if they would have had it recertified before they poured it, they would have known it was wrong on day one and they would have poured it differently. So I'm not opposed to that. And if that's something the board would like to suggest, we would gladly bring that to, the administration. And I'm sure that would be received favorably because it's not a big deal. Yeah, it costs the contractor one more trip from the surveyor, but if it gives them peace of mind and knowing they're not gonna need a variance down the road, I'm sure most contractors would understand that. One thing the city has been really good about lately is making sure that surveys and not just site plans are done, because a site plan can be done by anybody, not somebody who's legally allowed to mark lot lines like a surveyor. So we have already tightened it down, requiring surveys and not site plans for building permits for commercial, and we've already headed off a few problems that we caught that way. So we're kind of stepping that way already, and maybe just doing a research for all commercial projects becomes another way to do that.
Has there been any comments or of the neighbors next door? Any issues? Anyone against it that you've heard?
Not that I've heard. We've had a few conversations from neighbors that received notices that just were curious, hey, what's going on? A couple of the neighbors have seen, because if you've been by this site, it's currently fenced and they're getting ready to demo the portions of the building. So we've had some neighbors just say, hey, what's going on? I know one of the neighbors next door, just same thing, said, hey, We Energies has, flags marked what's going on. So I know Aaron explained to them what was going on. We had a neighbor behind them that's been in a few times just asking questions, more so just wanting to know what the final project was going to look like. Aaron, have you received any comment specific relating to the variance or concerns from anyone?
No, it's just those two that I want.
Okay, yeah, so it was more just questions of, hey, what's happening? I haven't heard anything negative.
Thank you.
Okay, then I will look for a motion from a member of the board.
Make a motion to approve.
Excuse me?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion, can you be a little more explicit, the number and what we're doing? And
All right, motion to approve appeal number 02-2020.
okay,
I'll second.
okay, discussion. Make this short and sweet. I think that what's happened here is we have a unique property, and we've had unique situations in the city of Muskego, basically for residential buildings, not so much for commercial buildings, but this happened 20 years ago. And if we could go back and have them redo it 20 years ago and measure with the correct tape measure or whatever they were using back then, we would have the offset proper and we wouldn't be here. But because somehow either the tape measure was wrong or the concrete shifted 2 inches, which is a little bit less acceptable as an option, we are here. And we appreciate the fact that a person is trying to make something better in Muskego. Whether or not neighbors object or support is not something that's relevant to us. We have to go on the facts and we have to find a hardship. And I think that with the information that we have in the packet, we know that there were some issues back in 2000 concerning the construction and the measurement, and that asking the owner to move the wall, the 2 inches, through no negligence or inability or trying to get something done just to get something done would be a hardship for Mr. Hazel. I probably killed your name again, and I'm sorry. And so I think that, as I said before, we have unique situations in this city, and this is just the latest. It won't be the last, but we appreciate the diligence that both the owner, his legal representative, and the city of Muskego staff have put into presenting this to us so that we can make an informed decision. So, any other comments? Then I'll call for the vote.
Dr. Kashan,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mr. Aranda,
Yes.
Chairman Blumenfield.
Yes.
Appeal 02-2020 is approved 4-0.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see what it looks like. Okay, we will go on to, let's see, miscellaneous business. We have the minutes. Where's our minutes? Approval of the minutes. We'll go back up to that. Approval of minutes of the May 28, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I have a correction.
I'm sorry, okay.
On page 3,
Page 3,
or page 5, actually. It's page 7, but page 5.
packet page 5, or,
2 paragraphs above the close section statement. How's that?
okay, so that's packet page 7, page 505. Okay,
We've got Dr. Robertson wanting clarification on ICE property. At the meeting, I made a comment that I want to clarify that we're approving the variance because of ICE on private property. And I don't know if it was confused with.
So just correct the name.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make sure that was in there, that's all.
It wasn't, Joe, it was, you can't?
I remember asking a question clarifying, we're approving this because of ICE on private property. Is the comment that I just wanted to make sure was in the records. And I believe there was some comments afterwards about long-term serving and safety and issues that the board found past safety of the owner is applicable. So that part's fine. I just wanted my words to be in there. That was it.
Let's make a note here.
Okay, we're on packet page 7, the top paragraph or the second paragraph below
It's
that?
the paragraph starts Dr. Robertson wanted clarification. It's 2 paragraphs above closed session.
Is considered a safety issue? I signed up, okay, and so what words
It
would
should
be-
read, Mr. Reno wanted clarification that ICE on private property is considered a safety issue.
instead of Robertson? Oh,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
yeah. Do we need a motion to approve that change? Dr.
Yes.
Bloomfield?
Yes,
So moved.
as amended.
Moved as amended.
A second?
I'll
We have a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed? Good, motion passes. We are adjourned.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank